Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Reate Knives Tribute. First off, though, I want to thank Blade HQ for helping me picking one of these guys up, as well as my Patreon patrons who make my channel possible. You are absolutely wonderful folks, and I appreciate very, very much every last one of you. Next thing, let's do some size comparison real quick. I want to start off by, measuring this guy off. And what we see here is this is coming in just over 2.5 inches, just about 7 centimeters, although, again, just over that line, worth a blade going on here. So it's not a particularly large knife. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica. As always, here it is against the Ontario Rat number 2. And what we see here is in terms of sharpened blade length, as well as blade profile, by the way, it is almost identical to the Rat 2 in terms of blade shape and size and all of that. Then here it is against the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, which is a much, much larger knife. And we can see here, yep, indeed, it is much larger. Although it is also worth noting that in terms of thickness, this is actually thicker than any of those 3 knives that I've been talking about here. So this is a little bit of a chubby boy, but not too much here. Next thing, this is a knife by Reate. Reate, of course, is a Chinese company well known for making amazing handles and, of late, amazing blades, too. They are doing some really excellent work, and in many ways, this can be viewed as a spiritual successor to the Reate Bushido, or whatever the heck it was, which was a knife that was very interesting, but also, well, let's put it this way, it was a little bit... there was a little bit of cosplay involved in that little guy. Anyways, there you go. So let's go ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting knife. Okay, to start with, I kind of feel like they did exactly what I asked for in my Bushido video. And by the way, I'm sure this was in the works well before then. I'm not actually taking any credit for anything. But at the same time, this guy is a really good idea because it took the design of the Bushido, which was really, really good, with a nice front flipper and that kind of thing, but it translated it into a more modern, traditional sort of style. This is absolutely not a traditional pocket knife, right? There is absolutely no way that somebody's going to go like, hey, is that a Great Eastern cutlery? No, absolutely not. But it has some of the same sensibilities with the bolster, with the pivot surrounds, etc., with the profiles. I appreciate very much that they've gone this route and they've created something out of that same mold, I think, that is going to be a lot more interesting to folks who aren't necessarily as into the samurai sort of approach. So that's good. Next thing, the clip on this guy is quite nice. It's got the right amount of tension. It's well positioned, such that the knife hangs just a little off to the side here, which is good. Next thing, the materials on this good to go. It's got very nice carbon fiber here. Very, very nice carbon fiber. No voids, no struggle here. Just excellent CF. It's got zirconium bolsters, which, by the way, zirconium is an element that you can make a knife out of. Just for some of you might not be aware. That is a thing. The blade steel here is M390, which is, if not the best blade steel out there, one of the top contenders. Then you got your little pivot collars here, which look very nice. Kind of a brassy look to them. I don't actually know for sure if they are actually brass or an anodized titanium, but either way, they look good. And the materials on this guy overall, coupled with the blasted titanium liners here, I'm pretty impressed. I gotta say that's very nice. And the other thing is they've got variety. They did a really nice thing. They offered some aesthetic variants that were dealer exclusive, right? Where there was no functional difference among the knives. So anyone can get one of these guys from any dealer, but they had versions of it with, like, oh, we're gonna do one specific, fat carbon scales or the Damascus bolsters or things like that. I kind of like seeing that, right? Having some dressy pieces, but still having the main tool available to everybody, so that way it's not one of the limited edition things. It's just like if you want one of the exclusive aesthetic versions, you can track one of those down, but everyone can get the tool. And I think that's exactly the right balance. Next thing, speaking of being able to get the tool, this is ongoing production. This guy actually reminds me more than anything else of the, should have grabbed this ahead of time, the Pena Front Flipper Trapper. I don't have the production version of it, but I do have my custom version here, and you can see this is actually a good deal larger than the Front Flipper Trapper, but in a lot of ways it seems to be spiritually related. They seem to be doing the same basic thing. But the difference is, and again, there is a production version of this is a custom version. The problem with the Pena is you can't freaking buy them. They're not making enough of them. And so as a result, like, oh, I want to get one. Oh, they're sold out in 30 seconds, etc. And, they'll make more runs eventually. But, so the fact that this is actually in regular production, and in fact, I confirmed with Reate that more of these are coming down the road, that is a great thing. And that makes this actually accessible to more than just a couple of people, or to eBay scalpers, more likely, down the road. So I very much appreciate the fact that this is being made on an ongoing basis. And it will scratch that itch for a lot of people who are unable to get, one of the Pena versions, which this is certainly very different from, but at the same time, like I said, scratches a similar itch. Next thing, the blade on this guy is good to go. Look at that M390 steel here. We've got a reasonably thin edge right here, which I appreciate very much. You have this nice little swedge at the very top here, which is nice, and I gotta say the grind on this is actually quite good. We come down to a nice thin tip. Reate for a while actually had some trouble with overly thick grinds, but they've really thinned it out here, and I appreciate that, and the end result is very good. So this is a very nice blade, and even though the stock is a little on the thicker side, I got no strong complaints with it. It is absolutely good to go for daily life. No complaints there. Next thing, action on this guy is also rather good to go, right? It is a front flip, a pocket knife, and there are a couple of different ways you can deploy this guy. One of them is just to put your thumb right up here and then do to the side there, just like you're flicking a lighter there. You can also use the index finger to pop this guy out. Should do that on camera maybe for a change. Oh, yeah. There are a bunch of different ways that you can open. And, of course, you could, in theory, like, if you're in the lunchroom, you can pop it open two-handedly to be a little stealthier, but really it is a front flipper first and foremost. The thing is, though, the action is smooth. It opens very cleanly. The tab size here is nice, meaning you've got enough leverage here to pop this guy open reliably without a bunch of thumb killing. And I actually really do like this approach of having something sticking up more toward the top there. Just makes it a little easier to grab onto and makes this index finger open, which I actually found myself doing naturally more often. It makes it very, very good. This is a really good size there. And the other thing on the action front is take a look at this. This little cutout here makes this guy luxurious to close. That's a weird thing to say, right? But it really is. This is so very easy to close, and it just deploys. Oh, man. So the action on this is good. Reate is well known for doing great actions, and this is no exception at all. And then finally, on the good side, this is really well executed, right? Reate is a company that has done great work for a while, but this is really great. As if we look at the bolsters here, there are just no gaps here. This blasting is beautiful. The backspacer here with the little grooves cut out, it's great. Every damn part of this, like I could look over this thing with a jeweler's loop and everything looks good, right? Reate does amazing work, and this is a really nice design that showcases that fact. Even the blade finish on this guy almost seems like some kind of a very, very light blast or something like that. It doesn't look quite satin. I don't know exactly how they finished it, but it's beautiful and uniform, and I just like it. This is exceptionally well made. This knife is good to go, and in terms of fit and finish, it is basically perfect. I say basically because I'm sure there's one thing that I'm missing. This is a little piece of cloth caught in there, but there is just nothing wrong with this damn thing. And I appreciate that very, very much. Reate has done exceptional work right here. So to me, at least, all that is the good is that it's well executed with nice action, nice blade, ongoing production, some variety, nice materials, a nice clip, and honestly, the knife is just a very, very good idea right now to tap into that modern traditional market. On the great side, to me, this is just a joy to carry. The size of it and the approach of it are really, really nice. Now, of course, this is bias, right? And I think for a lot of people, the fit and finish are probably going to be the great thing. But for me, this just really hits a sweet spot, right? Because we're coming in under 3 inches, which is going to make this legal for a bunch of different people. We're coming in here with a design that is not particularly intimidating. You take this out, and it's going to look more like a sort of, it looks a little more traditional, right? It looks more like something, and especially if you do it in a slow deployment manner, a lot of people are going to just be like, oh, that's a really classy-looking pocket knife, and it really does look classy. It looks like a classic, right? It's not super intimidating. It's not big, crazy, and murdery. It's not, this is just something that is going to read to most people like a pocket knife, right? And a classy one at that, right? And I think this is going to be a really nice knife for a suit pocket, right? This is a good, so to speak, gentleman's folder, a nice fancy carry. And I think it does quite well at that. And so to me, this guy just, the size is great. The carry is great. I mean, even size-wise, although it's a little on the thick side, this guy carries much smaller than the Spyderco Delica, and, much smaller than the Rat 2 even. And it's just like, it's well done. So to me, this was just a real pleasure to carry. This was a knife that I just loved having in my pocket on any given day. and I think is going to fit in really well in a variety of circumstances. And to me, at least, that is absolutely what is great. On the bad side, okay, we'll start with the price, $270. Now, look, I'm a little torn here. At some level, wow, that's a pricey pocket knife. That's getting to be more normal, and I'm not sure I feel so great about that being a normal price in the knife world. But anyways, I'm a little bit torn, because at some level, oof, it's pricey. But then I look down and I say, this is basically perfection with zirconium M390, good carbon fiber, etc. And it's very, very hard for me to get too bent out of shape about it. I mean, they delivered something exceptional, but they did it at a price that is kind of up there, right? So what I'm going to say is that, this is a lot of people will very happily pay this price. I don't see that being a major problem. But at the same time, I don't think that Reate and other Chinese companies should be sleeping on pricing, right? The way that they got into the position they are is by really delivering aggressive value. And so I'd like to see a little bit more aggressive value. I'd like to see them pushing down a little bit in price point, a little bit further as they continue to look at new products there. Next thing, this is going to be right over the 2.75-inch line. This isn't a super relevant line for a lot of people, but it can be. And so going right over that line is less productive than going right under it, right? So this has gone off a couple of people's table for not a whole lot of good return. Next thing, the Zerk, the carbon fiber, they look great. No question about that. However, I can see a desire to have a little bit more in the way of a traditional material, right? Like throw a really nice micarta in here. Something like that. That could look really, really nice. Or little bits of stabilized wood. I can see versions of this knife being absolutely amazing with some more traditional materials as well. Right now, this looks great, but it is also very modern. It is very decidedly there. But I think with a little bit more, even like the burlap micarta that they used on the Bushido, I think they could do amazing work. And so I'd like to see a little bit more in the way of use of traditional materials in future runs, because I think that's going to scratch an itch even harder, so to speak, for the for the modern traditional crowd. It is going to be very interesting for a bunch of folks. So there's that. Next thing, like I mentioned already, this guy can't really be pinched open because the swedge is right here and there's not quite enough area here to grab on the very top here. And all that means is that practically speaking, if you're opening this two-handed, you're going to need to assist a little bit with your thumb to break that detent and get it the rest of the way out. This isn't a bad thing, but it does make it just slightly less lunchroom friendly than something where even if it is, flippable, for instance, this is, what's a good example of this? Anyways, I'm trying to find, okay, here, the Pena front flipper trapper, right? If I'm trying to be super svelte about it, I can just grab this and pop it open this way, right? Rather than doing the full-on flickety-flick, oh my God, is that a switchblade? Irma's diving under the lunch table, etc. The little detail, but it is a thing. Next thing, this guy is generally a little bit on the chubby side. The area where I think they need to lose the weight here, the handles, the bolsters, whatever, that's fine, but the blade stock is just a little overly thick. I feel like I'd like to see them thin this out a little bit because that's one of the areas where traditional knives are very strong. And although the grind is certainly good, I feel like this knife would just be a little bit better if it were a little thinner. It would carry a little nicer, it would cut a little bit nicer in hard materials, etc. I just don't see a reason why this blade needs to be the thickness that it is. It's not the end of any worlds particularly, but I think a little bit of thinner stock would be a little bit better, and it would also make the back of this just a little less scary, which, by the way, I can just barely touch that with the tip of my finger, but if this were thinner still, that would be impossible, and I think, so there just doesn't seem to be any loss to using thinner stock here. I think that would just be nice, and it would make it feel even a little bit more traditional than it already does. And then finally, on the bad side, this Lanyard Hole is a lazy Lanyard Hole, right? They could have done this same thing by putting a little hole right through here, and then the design would be unbroken up, so to speak. But just having a random hole in the back of it is something that needs to stop. I don't use lanyards, so I'm a little bit biased here, but at the same time, this is a textbook definition of, oh, we need a Lanyard Hole, okay, and then they drill it out, and then suddenly you've got this thing on here. This knife would just look better in every way without that hole in the back of it. So I'd really like to see them have gone a different route, like a through the backspace a Lanyard Hole, or just skip the whole damn thing altogether and be done with it, Lanyard Hole. There are lots of ways to do it that don't look like this, and I really don't like that they went this route. But anyways, on the bad side, that's what I got here, is the Lanyard Hole is very lazy and just feels like Well, it's a little chubby, generally speaking, with blade stock that could be thinned out. It can be pinched open. I'd like to see more traditional materials, over 2.75 inches, not a big deal. And the price is sort of in that area where it's fine, but I'd like to see him pushing the value more aggressively. On the final conclusion, and there's nothing ugly here, so final conclusion, this is a really great little knife. Honestly, it really is. It's got a great clip, great materials, some variety, an ongoing production basis, which is big. It's got nice blades, nice action, great execution, and a really nice size and design for EDC. It is not the pinnacle of value, and the materials are definitely non-traditional. It's not a pinch-open option. The knife is trick. Well, it is tricky. I don't even know. And the Lanyard Hole is definitely a lazy touch there, but I really like this a lot. The Bushido, like I said, it was a nice knife, but in a lot of ways it felt like it had a little bit too much cosplay going on, right? Like, you know, that is your anime, I have studied the ways of the blade kind of an affair. And it ended up feeling a little bit weird for everyday life. And in fact, Reate's work, generally speaking, has been generally very large, very big tactical knives, flippers with crazy designs. And so this feels very, very different, right? This instead is something that is a little bit more traditional, a little bit more in the vein of a classy knife, right? A fancy higher-end sort of carry thing. But more importantly, it just feels like a good, solid, everyday carry knife, right? This was a knife that when I had it in my pocket, I had a really good knife with me. And it was very easy to carry. It was very small. It was a real joy, honestly, to carry. And a knife that I came to really love in the time that I had to carry. This, okay, I'll give you an example. As a reviewer, I have a billion knives that I need to be reviewing, right? The end of my desk is just full of really great knives that I need to give a chance to. This one kept sneaking in like, I don't know, I need a little bit more time. I'm not sure about the tribute. I was sure about the tribute, but I just like carrying the damn thing. And so this is a knife that I've decided is going to stick around in my collection for a little while. I don't know if it's going to be with me forever. Maybe it will be. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But it was a real joy to carry. And I think it's a very good thing for it to stick around for a bit, because I think this is honestly the nicest thing that Reate has ever done under their own brand. They've done some amazing work for other folks like Shop by Design, Brian the Doe, etc. But in terms of the Reate brand name, this is the thing I like most that company has ever done. And so to me, this was a very easy gem, right? And I think that if Reate takes that same basic pattern, skips the damn Lanyard Hole for a change, and plays around with some new materials, some old materials would be really nice, some new ideas, and keeps these regularly purchasable, then I think this is going to be a big contribution to a bunch of people's collections, because I think this is going to be really interesting and really going to jump out at folks as a great option for a classy, small sort of carry. So anyways, well done, Reate. Absolutely great job, great knife, and I hope this has been interesting to you all and that you have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. I don't know that this is the best knife in the world, but it is just a tribute. Tenacious D reference? No? Okay, anyways, hope this has been interesting to you. Have a good one. Bye now.